Welcome to Status Update, the social media and creator podcast that you can listen to whilst you're working, because this is a work podcast. I'm Stevie Johnson, MD of Disrupt and ex-television personality. As always, alongside me today is my friend, colleague, and the voice of Gen Z, Jake Crabb.
Hi, I'm Jake. You probably don't know me yet, but you will.
Today's guest on the very first episode of Status Update has been called Adland's favourite social media star, creative director of Gravity Road, and someone that we all love. It's the wonderful Rob Mayhew. And in this episode, we cover...
I'm doing what I love, and it's taken 20 years to get there.
I think the worst I got was being called a side salad. And then
What is a side salad? I haven't really spoke about this before. I think I was lost. The best advice I can give is just keep going with it.
So whether you're on your commute, you're at work, taking your break, this is Status Update.
It's a pleasure to be here. I'm very excited to be your first guest.
It's Rob. Look, we love you, so we're super excited as well. Absolutely. A little icebreaker that we are going to do with all of our guests to start things off is to take you back to a time when you might have updated your status, and looking back on it now, it makes you cringe. Do you have any ideas or anything that comes to mind?
I want to hear yours first.
Oh my god!
I don't think I should be the first one.
All right.
I agree, actually.
Okay,
I agree. It's got to be Stevie Johnson first.
There are two that spring to mind, and this is when I was first on Facebook. So I must have been 17 in my last year at school, and I updated my status. I think it was my second ever status, and it read, Stevie is styling his hair to perfection.
Oh my god, isn't that?
Yeah.
Which is weird. Also, the fact that I was an all boys boarding school when I was, I don't know who I was styling my hair for, but you know,
for yourself.
Yeah.
It's always for yourself.
Yeah.
So when Facebook came in, I was mid-20s. I was working for an agency, and what was really exciting, actually, thinking about Facebook just springs to mind, is that clients didn't know about it. So you could charge like a lot of money to we'll build you a Facebook tab, or we'll build you like these little things. So my introduction was through work, and then I used to check into everything, and I used to so bad.
Any cafe, any restaurant,
anything. There's no privacy, and it was like the first. I was like, whatever. And I used to update my status almost every day, so it was cringe from the beginning. They're all still up there as well.
Yeah.
If you
maybe we should have had a dig through. Probably need to be friends on Facebook.
I think I used to overshare a lot, and I think it would probably be. I used to talk about my relationships on there as well, so I probably would have put Rob is unhappy, or Rob is confused.
And would you always update your relationship status as well?
I was so excited to do that.
It's complicated.
It's complicated. No, I was never complicated, but it was a big deal.
Yeah.
To say that you're in a relationship.
Yeah.
I've got to check because I haven't really logged into Facebook in a long time, so I wonder who I'm still in a relationship with on Facebook.
So good. And now it's kind of moved now to Instagram. It's when you first put up a photo. I read something the other day. It's you start with stories with your partner's back turned, so people are intrigued as to who's there.
They call it a soft launch of the partner. Yeah, soft launching your partner.
My wife's incredibly private. A lot of people don't think she exists, which is fine with me. And so even that was sort of, you wouldn't really know.
Yeah. I like that though.
Which makes me a great podcast guest.
We don't need to
open up today.
We don't need to go too personal, but it's nice. My wife's also fairly private, and my background is, was a very public background.
You couldn't be more public.
Yeah. Every relationship I had needed to be shown on camera, and when I wasn't showing a relationship on camera,
it was headlines.
I was being written out of episodes. So
you had to leave because you had a relationship outside. Is that right?
That is true. You knew that. Oh, I'm impressed.
I'm of an age. Remember when I consumed some of your content?
Yeah. It was a choice I made. After 3 years, and the producers were less interested in me because.
Should we explain to people who might not know?
For anyone who doesn't know, I'll take this one, Steve.
Yeah.
For anyone who doesn't know, Stevie Johnson, host of the Status Update podcast, was on Made in Chelsea for a number of years, introduced in Series 4?
Introduced in Series 4. It had been running for 1 year, and I was on it for 3 years.
They did 3 series in 1 year?
I started in Series 4, so I've been running a year and a half.
Okay.
I joined start of Series 4 with my good friend Andy Jordan. Did it for 3 years, 6.5 seasons, which was a lot of fun. We won a BAFTA when I was on it.
Brilliant.
Which I was very proud about. I couldn't be there. I was in hospital. but that's for another time. So for anyone listening that doesn't know the background I was talking about.
Do you have positive thoughts about it?
I absolutely loved doing it.
Yeah,
it was like, I was 23 when I started. I had an absolute blast. I think it was great for my confidence, presentation skills as well, because I got very used to being in crowds, having to speak publicly.
Also, you came across as a very nice guy in it.
Thanks, Rob.
You did.
No, I appreciate.
A little bit shy with the ladies at times. Like just a nice, like that's hard. You obviously are a super nice guy. They made you just a nice guy.
Yeah.
Well, from the Kings Road cutie to, as the drum called you, Adlan's favourite social media star.
Yes.
Mr. Rob Mayhew.
Yeah. Rob, it's been a crazy few years. Jake's obviously mentioned, the quote from the drum, Adlan's favourite social media star. You won the Editor's Choice Award at European Video Awards.
Correct.
You've hosted the Amazon Ads Partner Awards. You've appeared on a Piccadilly billboard. You're invited to Cannes Lion by TikTok. Twice speaker at Marketing Week. Tell us how life has changed for you since 2020 when you joined TikTok.
I mean, it's been crazy, and it's like in such a nice way. So I think I was like head of social or client services director level within agencies at like Ogilvy Social Lab and Grey and other agencies. So I've had a up and down career. Like it's like a trajectory. It's probably going up, just inevitably. It does sort of go up. It's been an interesting career. But when I joined TikTok, things just started to change for me. And the reason why I actually joined it was because I was writing a lot of strategies about TikTok, but I didn't understand it. The very nature of our job is sometimes you just don't have the time. Mm-hmm. So I thought, you know what? I'm going to make the time. I'm going to understand TikTok. I'd been doing stand-up comedy for sort of 6-7 years before that. So I thought, why don't I just put some comedy onto TikTok and then actually then start to apply all the learnings into my day job as well, because more and more we're getting asked to come up with like social media strategies and stuff. So it kind of made a lot of sense. And then I'd say it took about 6 months. I was posting every day, but I still do post every day. For the first 6 months, I didn't even post a workplace sketch. It was all me to camera talking like just little jokes here and there. And then I did a sketch because it was snowing. I didn't want to leave the house. So I got the green screen up on my phone with the app. And I did a sketch about how you are waiting to go into a meeting room, but there's someone already in there. And it's that awkward dance you have with them that's kind of just really uncomfortable. Yeah. You pretend you booked it or whatever. And it got like, so before that I was getting like maybe 400, 500 views a video. And then just this went to 20,000. I thought, okay, people like relatable content. I didn't even think about doing sketches at that point. I'd done some character stuff, but nothing exciting. It's not worth going back and check. It's all still up there. And I thought, oh, hang on a minute. I've got 20 years of experience of working in an agency. I've got, from being a comedian, you just think about what's funny a lot. It's just a muscle. I'm always, and just my general character is that I'm always looking, what's the funniest thing in the situation? All the time I've always been like that. Almost, I think, quite silly. And so I just thought, well, I can apply all of that. And then I just ran with it basically and started creating these sketches in my bedroom, using my iPhone and my ring light. That's all I needed. I've got zero production skills. And immediately it started to affect my work. Like I was like, do you know what? I really, really, really value my knowledge now on TikTok. So I started freelancing. I started like just becoming a bit of a consultant to different brands. And so it was quite quickly that I realized the power of TikTok. And at the same time, at the beginning, I always thought I'd just consult on TikTok. The creating of TikToks would be a sort of just something I would do, but it would never be the main thing. But I was still posting every day, sometimes 8 times a day.
Wow.
That's what happens when you're a freelancer, my friends.
Oh, yeah, I suppose.
And something happened within sort of, I'd say, after about a year, I got to like 100,000. And then things just started, people started to sort of message me. I started posting on LinkedIn as well. And then I went from like 0 to 100,000 followers on LinkedIn, which is incredibly valuable in terms of people seeing you, people that aren't on TikTok, the right type of audience who aren't necessarily on TikTok would then start to see my stuff. And it's kind of gone from there. And then I went down to 4 days a week, now I'm on 2 days a week as creative director at Gravity Road. So I went from being an account handler to talking to Gravity Road and saying, look, I want to be a creative director. I want to be your TikTok creative director. I want to be your brands. So that's my job's changed now completely.
Incredible.
And all of that is because I picked up that phone one day.
I suppose you're a walking, living case study as to what to do on TikTok, not just for individuals, but for brands as well.
Yeah. And do you know what? It's really interesting that is exactly that. It's the consistency, the experimentation, have fun with it, understand your audience, and just keep learning. Like I'm always learning. I look back at stuff I made 6 months ago, I'd make it different today. So it's by showing up every day and treating it almost like a business, a job. You have to have a very supportive wife or partner in order to kind of allow you to do that. And she's been incredible. And that's what I think, when I do strategies for clients, TikTok at Gravity Road, so it's almost, some of those rules really do apply. You just need to show up every day and not necessarily focus on the numbers, but focus on creating original content. And I actually, when I joined TikTok, I would block all the other people that were doing similar stuff, which is awkward when you bump into them. Because I wanted to create original sketches.
Okay, so you didn't want to actually see their content at all.
No.
It wasn't because you didn't like the people.
No, not at all. They're great. And they're like, I've actually followed them now. But at the time, it was like I just wanted to create stuff that I thought was funny and not necessarily be driven by trends. And like the work, for instance, I never did working from home sketches because I knew during the pandemic that we would eventually go back to the office.
Yeah.
So I thought that would have a shelf life.
There was also, my algorithm on Instagram Reels was just pumped full of working from home sketches.
100%.
Anyway,
Exactly. And I thought, what can I add to that? They're doing a great job of it. Which is why I had then had the confidence, I'd say after about 6 months of creating these workplace sketches, to be more specific about the agency life and advertising and marketing, and like actually be even more niche. And that's when brands then started to get involved because of the B2B element of what I do. Is if my audience is people that work in agencies, or small businesses, they work at brands, whatever, they've got cash, they might be like mid-20s to 50, and I post on TikTok and LinkedIn. So you can reach those audiences. If you want to work with me, I'll create a sketch for you for your brands as a content creator. And it's been amazing, and it has changed my life.
Just touching on the point of consistency, obviously, after all this time of making content every day, as you said at some point you were making 8 TikToks a day.
Yep.
Do you have a struggle coming up with new ideas now, or have you got so much experience in the agency world that you're just still bursting with ideas?
Still bursting with ideas. And it's almost like, if you take, like, you go into a meeting room, the client's about to arrive. So you think about, right, the getting the IT ready, going to the lift to go and pick up the client, bringing them up in the lift, where the pastries go, who's making the tea, who's making the notes. There's like 10 TikToks there.
Yeah,
10 ideas there. And then, 20 years of experience. And as I said, I've been an account handler. So I've sort of just observed all the different departments and different size agencies.
Would you ever consider introducing or collaborating with other creators in the space that do similar type of content?
Yeah, absolutely. I have thought about that, and there has been some conversations. It hasn't come about yet.
Hey, look, I'm MD at a social media agency.
Exactly.
We could always do something. I'm not that creative in terms of the content creation that I do.
Maybe I would. Anyone can do it. Okay. That's the thing about TikTok, is that you don't need any production skills. You just need an idea, and it's almost like everyone thinks, oh, I can't do it or whatever. No one can do it when they first start. They really can't. And it's like you have to you learn it. It's like anything. You just got to want to do it and sort of stick with it.
And practice makes perfect, right?
100%. And that's exactly it. You like, if no one sees it, no one sees it. The best advice I can give is just keep going with it. Yeah. Like anything. And it's so simple, and it's so easy to say that. If you're making good content, eventually it'll find its audience.
Absolutely. In a previous role of mine, I ran a YouTube channel, and as you say, it was a really slow start, but it's that case of not giving up, fine-tuning a few things, and eventually you do grow on the channel.
Exactly. And that's the thing. That's when you realize that time is the most precious thing, really.
Showing up, being consistent. I post very rarely, and I know it's a bad thing. It's almost like I've got this gift of this following, and I know that if I could turn around, if I could ideate content, if I could post every single day, things could really help.
But so on that, is it because you always feel like you only get a few shots with this audience? Like they've got an expectation of you, like, okay, you're almost too scared to try things with them?
I'm too scared to try things.
Yeah.
100%. I also think I've seen my audience numbers drop over time because I am less relevant now to what I was 7, 8, 9, 10 years ago. And I've kind of been all right with that. So I've accepted it. But at the same time, I know that if I was to try new things and post, that it could come across quite well. But I am nervous.
Yeah, but you're in a position now, obviously you've had your son, coming up for a year old. You could transition into that family lifestyle top.
Of course.
Yeah,
of course. But then it comes back to as well, just like your wife's quite private, so is mine. And, I haven't really shown my son at all. Or I have a little bit, but not his face or anything.
You could hire an actor son. But I got it. I almost feel like you should just treat it like you've got 0 followers and build it from 0 from now. It's almost, but they're there. Obviously, you've got these big numbers. It's about what you want to do with it. Do you want it for work? Do you want it for...
Exactly. I need to sit down and have more of a thing. But this is our everyday. Disrupt, influencer and social media agency. We're working in it. I make the excuse that I'm busy, but you can always make time. I want to pull you up on one of the things you said, Rob. You mentioned that everyone that you started on TikTok with back in 2020 has seen similar types of success. But do you think some of it is owed to the 20 years you've got an agency experience, the 6 years of stand-up comedy? Malcolm Gladwell writes about 10,000 hours in order to hone your craft and to become perfect at something. And so surely that's got to play into it rather than just...
Yeah, absolutely. I think you're right. And actually, I always say this to people who think they're too old to be on TikTok. I'm like, you've got something to say. You've got, you've got you can add a lot of value because you've just your very nature, you've lived your life. And I think actually when a brand works with me to create a sketch, it might not take me long to write a sketch and to film it, but what they're buying is the 20 years experience of, these little nuances that I've picked up on, all the mistakes I've made over the last few years making these sketches, and then cultivating this audience that I know what they like. So that's what a brand's paying me for when they work with me. They're not, it's not just as simple as, 3,500 sketches or how many I've done. It's like, you're right. It is all of that 20 years. It's observing, it's having ups, having downs, being, I've been fired for nothing bad, but just not being very good at my job. I've been promoted. I've, not passed my probation. I've worked for great agencies. I've been bullied by a boss. I've, all of these things. What makes, I think, me unique is that I have a platform where I can talk about these things. Like I like the things I want to say in a meeting, I can now say in a sketch. And I feel like I'm at that level in my job where I can pick on founders of agencies, and I can pick on, because it's most of what I say is true. It's a true observation. I don't create sketches of stuff that a lot of people message me, you should do this and do that. 99 times out of 10, because I haven't experienced them, I wouldn't do a sketch. Everything you see is pretty much based on something that's either happened to me or I've observed, or a funny sort of version of it.
I was going to say, I hope in a couple of days I'm not scrolling on TikTok and I see when you have a terrible podcast experience.
I always need enough time.
Yeah. And that brings me on to something else that I wanted to ask is, you've obviously found your niche and it comes across in the content that you create. It's relevant to anyone that works in ad land agency space. Do you ever feel like you want to or need to branch out at some stage to become more mainstream or become maybe more relevant to a wider audience?
Do you know what? That if you'd have asked me that a year ago, I probably would have said yes. But the more conversations and being like in Cannes, there's not many people doing what I do at all. So actually that has slightly more value, I think. When brands come to me, I know I've already made a PowerPoint slide in my face on going that we want to work with them. And I feel like, if you go on something like LinkedIn, for instance, as a platform, there's not many people doing what I do. So actually, I quite like the fact that I don't need millions of followers because I've already got an audience. Brands are now realizing that actually influencers and B2B influencers, it's sexy. It doesn't, it's still human to human. Yeah, and actually that's what I want to explore that so much more for creative. I love coming up with ideas for brands, and they're really good brands. Like they're like, just be funny, do what you need to do. And because often I'm like, how to get their messaging in, because that's the marketing side. They're like, it's too much messaging. I'm like, fair enough. So I feel like it's unexplored. I feel like it's new. And I feel like if I was a bit of everything, or I still at the weekend will do a sketch about getting in a taxi and having to make small talk.
Yeah.
Like I'll have fun at the weekends because people don't want to talk about it.
I also think as well, and it's something that we say to our clients a lot now, that niche community, that niche audience, a micro influencer, for example, is so much more powerful now than they were a few years ago.
And it's almost the bread and butter of influencer marketing.
Yeah, but because that audience is so engaged, so highly engaged and highly targeted. For that.
And that's only going to get more important, I think. I know we've always said niche the last few years, but I feel like that's going to get bigger and bigger as I think, Gen A, whatever, the people that have just grown up on their phones and following these people, they'll be more interested in the community than the size of the audience. So I think brands will have to follow that as well.
Rob, have you found, since you've become this prominent figure in the agency world, well, you are, have you found there's been many, there's obviously benefits, can line, all that kind of stuff. Have you found there's been any downsides to being that kind of prominent figure in the agency world, whether it be in your career or...
I haven't really spoke about this before. I think I was lost in my career. No, I can say this looking back, is that I was a good account handler working in social media. I'd fallen a bit out of love with social media, but then TikTok came along and it made me fall in love with it again because it was lo-fi, an idea, it's funny, it's joyful. So actually I feel like I've now positioned now I'm a creative director working a few days a week. I'm doing what I love, and it's taken 20 years to get there. To find what I'm good at as well. Like before I was average, whereas now I feel like I'm really good at this.
Yeah.
The things I get to do now, I would never have been in Cannes on the merit of being a good account handler.
Yeah.
A few years ago. Whereas now, it's wonderful, and it means that I can spend more time with my family as well. Like I have Fridays off, so I can spend it with my child, rather than being at childcare. Not because I'm not present. So it's just nice what it's done. It's allowed me to be creative 24/7. Like I just feel so empowered by it, and it's great. And people are really nice to me, so that's nice. If people are mean to me, you probably get this. People have an opinion, but yeah, it's great. I can't think of the downside.
Any trolls? Then you're saying people are mean to you.
As bad as it gets, and it doesn't wind me up, is when I'll post something on LinkedIn or TikTok, an ad for like, I don't know, it might be something really relevant, like pitch, which is like where you can come and get pitch.
Couldn't get more relevant.
Couldn't get more relevant for us. And someone will write, oh, sorry.
It's almost not even an ad, it's that relevant.
Exactly. It's like, I've worked really hard making it very less addy. And then we'll go, oh, someone sold out. They'll hashtag sell out.
Oh, that's the worst.
And I want to go and say, I've created 3,500 sketches for free. Like,
let me have one.
Let me have one. And also, this is LinkedIn. Do you know what I mean? Everyone's selling something. Yeah. And I've tried to make it, and it's still funny. Like, but those people, you can't let them get to you.
Yeah.
My wife always comes to me and goes, "But don't respond," which obviously it's too late, I already have. But I always say something. I always either put a heart there.
Nice.
It's normally a man who would hate that, or I just say, "No problems, thanks for your support." And it's weird. A lot often they then slide into my DMs and say, "Oh, I'm so sorry, dude."
That's the thing. They don't expect the response, and as soon as you respond, they feel very bad and guilty. They do.
It's so weird.
Yeah.
Firstly, thanks for the comment, helping the post, the engagement.
That's another one.
I used to find it as well. I used to go through the stage of searching my name on Twitter. I mean, I was mentioned enough to not do that, but I would also go through that, and you get trolls, and it's people wanting a bit of a rise but not expecting it. I think the worst I got was being called a side salad, which I didn't know at the time what that was. And then
what is a side salad?
I think it's just like someone that's like, it's almost like on the side.
You're just there.
Oh, that's incredible.
Yeah, and because
I have that.
Yeah, you can have that for sure.
Next sketch.
But
that's
I was
lovely.
like, what does that even mean? And then I found out what it meant, and I guess it was.
That's me.
It was me.
Yeah. To be honest, people are so nice to me. They're really nice to me, and also my audience is a bit older. So they don't have time.
What I would say, I mean, from what I know of you, we've met once before, but when I speak to people about you, when I say that we're doing this podcast together, it does feel like you are universally adored, both by the CMOs that come up to you at Cannes for a photo, and also juniors and agencies that look up to you. And that's why I also feel like it can be really refreshing to hear you speak about, you felt lost at one stage. It took you 20 years to find this happy medium that you're in now. And that's not to say that everyone's going to be Rob Mayhew, TikTok content creator, but it does take time to...
I've always tried to be nice in my job. and fun. I hope I've done a good job with that, and I hope that comes across in the content as well. Like I try to be joyful and kind, and I don't want all of my sketches are most of them are a love letter to the industry. It's a ridiculous job that we all have, that we all take for granted, of like some of the weird stuff that we have to do every day. But it's still a love letter to the industry, and I think that I do like to start talking about issues like pregnant when screwed. You know, it's about mums and dads who come back into the industry, like especially in advertising. Like it's really hard. It's not a setup. You're expected to work late nights and all that. It's not set up for parents, as you know. So there are some issues like that I'd like to highlight a bit, and getting a bit into that, because actually that's really important to me.
Well, we obviously live in an era of cancel culture now.
Yeah.
Does that ever play on your mind where you think, I could branch out and maybe be a bit controversial in my content? Or
I mean, not really. I'm always conscious of like things that like might be misunderstood. I don't want to. I know comedy should be free and say what you want, but at the same time, I don't want to upset people. You know, I still feel very strongly that no agency should work for oil and gas. So that's quite controversial. If you work for a big network, which
Disrupt does not do that.
No, Disrupt does not. But I have worked for a big network. I'm not going to mention them because I'm in a good mood. That they have, and I got into trouble over some stuff I posted. Not where I'm working now, by the way. They're absolutely fine. They haven't worked before, I guess. So we're good. That's the only bit. That was the downside. I don't want to be restricted in what I make.
Yeah.
Content-wise.
Do you feel, leading on from Jake's point around cancel culture, it's interesting because for you, you're not thinking about yourself. It's just about the type of content that you want people to see you create. Because I was going to say, if I look at something from your standpoint, not only are you a content creator with a big following, but you've got a day job in the agency world. So is there more to lose for you than other people if there is something controversial that comes out that might...
I don't think so. I think where I work, Gravity Road, they understand it. I'd have to really do a misstep for things to go wrong, I think. And hopefully I won't. I mean, you've always got to be careful. I'm always aware of like, does this look bad? Like, what if I was a brand? Because I often do this in my job, actually. I have to go through the influencers and think, I do a little brand health check on them. Yeah. And I'm conscious of like, if the first thing you see is they're swearing or like they're saying stuff, you just sort of think, the client's not going to like that. And I'm aware of that for myself as well.
It wouldn't be a marketing podcast without talking about trends, the way the industry's changing. Obviously, there's a lot around AI. The metaverse kind of came, went, and has come again. Yeah. What do you see from your standpoint as big changes coming up in the next 12 months and trends to be jumping on?
So having been to Cannes, AI was a big conversation. And one thing I picked up on it is like, it could go hand in hand with creativity. I think the agencies and the brands are really creative, can thrive with it, and actually the creative department shouldn't be. You can grow it basically with the power with AI if they're working with it to help aid the creativity. It shouldn't be them reducing the number of creatives. You should be increasing them. It'll
enhance their ability to do their job rather than...
Yes, exactly. And maybe get rid of some of the things that people enjoy less. So I think there will be it will affect some jobs, but I don't think it will affect creativity. I think the agencies who are like a factory and just knock stuff out for brands, which, we've all been guilty of that, might struggle because there'll be quicker, cheaper ways of doing that. But really, the creative agencies, the ones that really sort of come up with the most incredible ideas, I don't think that can be replicated and reduced. I think that's where AI will really help those agencies thrive.
And we see it. I mean, we obviously focus a lot on influencer marketing, but our team are really seeing the benefits already in terms of how it can aid creator briefs, how it can help with outreach emails and little things like that. And I think over time, as people get more confident, it's really gonna...
It's definitely something that we're embracing. And I think if there's agencies out there that aren't embracing it already, even in its infancy, then they need to. It's such a big thing. It's going to take over the world, right?
It is, and it feels so scary and daunting. But actually, I feel like once you've got beyond that fear, I've tried to use it to come up with some ideas for me, and they aren't very good.
Have you asked ChatGPT to write you a sketch?
Yes, I have, and it's just it's the very obvious kind of relatable things.
Yeah.
And what I think that won't replace me unless then you can start turning me into videos and stuff like that. Then God knows what happened. But it's just really interesting, exciting. I can see why people are terrified as well. But I feel like agencies and brands need to have open discussions about it and not deny the fact that we need to retrain these graphic designers or help them sort of learn to work with it rather than just there being a ton of layoffs in about 3 years time. Like we need to start addressing these issues now, because something's going to happen where we're just going to get rid of people and we're not going to retrain them. It's just going to be reducing the workforce when actually you can be rebuilding the workforce to work with these technologies.
I agree. I think it's a tool that has to be integrated to service us rather than replace us.
Exactly. And that's great, but let's see what happens.
And the future of TikTok, obviously, I feel like last year, the biggest thing talked about on TikTok and the future of TikTok was commerce. Yeah. And I feel like that's gone silent.
They've launched quite a lot of new ad formats now. Yeah. So I think it's gone silent because it's working well.
Okay.
I feel like there's for instance, in Cannes, we just launched TikTok and Unilever have partnered up. CleanTok, they're sort of owning CleanTok for all of their brands.
Okay.
And working with different influencers for that. So I feel like I know what you mean. Like the live selling and all of that still hasn't quite taken off.
Yeah.
I think that's going to change.
We've been saying, I think we put it down as one of our trends at the start of last year.
It was both years. It's been a trend
for this year. Yeah. And, you
see
stick
this it in again.
Yeah.
We will. Yeah. Thanks for the insight tip.
Yeah.
You see there's obviously success in Asia, and it's just been a little bit slower.
It is. And I tell you why. It's because it's cheap tech. It's like cheap headphones, and makeup's a little bit better.
Water bottles was a big thing. Everyone had that one water bottle, yeah.
But I feel like, it will be the creators to start doing more merch and bringing out their brands and stuff like that. I think that's where it will be.
That's a whole, and that's a whole other podcast, I think, in terms of talent and their own brands and that replacing.
That's huge.
Yeah.
That's really huge.
That's going to be something, I think, for talent agencies where a lot of revenue is going to be made moving forward.
Yeah. And it's Niels Leonard that says from Uncommon, he's like, don't rely on brands to do great work. Just build the brand yourself if you've got a great idea.
Yeah, exactly.
Be the brand.
Yeah. And we're starting to see a little bit of that, but I think, again, maybe that's one for us to put in our trends for next year at the start, all around talent brands and so on. Before we wrap up, Jake, I know you want to ask Rob about fashion.
I do. I know it's probably something that you get asked quite a lot, but you do have an iconic selection of knitwear. Have you always enjoyed that type of fashion? Do you find it's helped you gain your
notoriety,
following and notoriety? Do you think is it a part of your strategy?
These are my clothes, so I've always dressed like this.
Yeah.
I've always dressed a bit odd. And then so there's a brand called Rowing Blazer who
there's an ex-rower from Oxford.
That's right, yeah. And they're, I didn't know him I just knew the brand. And I have like 3 or 4 jumpers of theirs at the beginning when I started making these sketches. They're quite expensive, I'm not going to lie.
Yeah.
But they were like my treat.
Yeah.
They're like my thing that I would buy.
Your little reward.
Yeah. I wasn't spending money on that. And then I thought, I'm going to just wear these jumpers. I wonder if they'll get in touch and I can get some free jumpers. Okay, it just played, and I love them so much that I was really proud of them. Like I was going to wear them because I really liked them, and it took about 6 months, and then I got an email at 2 a.m. from their PR guy Drew, and copied in Jack, who's the founder, and he's like, right, we love what you're doing, you're hilarious. Go on the website. What do you want? And I've since met Jack, the founder, like 3 or 4 times. Become a good friend of mine. And I like, this is a Rowing Blazer.
Yeah.
Everything you see me wear is a Rowing Blazer jumper.
No, that's when you knew you made it.
A little bit, but I'm a true fan, and it's like they identified me as someone who genuinely, and I still spend money with them because sometimes I'm just embarrassed to ask for free jumpers. I'll spend money with them anyway. But I think it has helped because when you're on TikTok, you want to be identifiable.
Exactly, yeah.
So I think it helps in that sense. The things I get to do and enjoy with my family now, like, it's so incredible. That's and them coming down and see me on the billboard. Like, what's all that about? And it's like,
it's crazy.
I enjoy all that stuff. And I think that's the thing. Like, I'm 43. I'm having fun.
Yeah.
I'm enjoying this. If this happened to my early 20s, I don't know what would happen. I'll probably be dead now. But I'm not. I'm fine. This is great. And I like, it's nice. I appreciate everything. Everyone that comes and talks to me and says, I really like your sketches. I appreciate everything. And I don't take it for granted. It could end tomorrow, as my dad keeps telling me.
Yeah.
And, you know, that's why I'm keen to like keep doing what I do, but at the same time, have fun with it, experiment with some other things, and just enjoy it.
Love it. Rob, I think that's a really nice way to wrap this all up. Thank you so much for updating your status with us today. It's been a real pleasure. It's complicated. It's been a real pleasure to have you with us.
We're out. Is that how we end?
Yeah, that's fine.
Guys, thank you so much for updating your status with us today. We've absolutely loved having Rob in the studio with us, discussing his journey in the industry so far. If you've enjoyed the episode today, follow us on Spotify, Apple Podcasts, and wherever you get your podcasts. If you found today's discussion insightful, share it with your friends or colleagues to keep them in the loop. Once again, thank you for stopping by for this episode of Status Update. We'll see you in the next one.